In the beginning, there wasn't much to look at, but then God said, let there be out. Okay, that's better. The earth was completely submerged in water, but God made a dome of air in the middle for land to pop up and start sprouting plants. This took him a few days to pull off, and he realized it would be convenient to be able to tell time. So then he made a bunch of pretty lights in the sky that moved in consistent cycles. Then God had the earth sprout all kinds of animals, and finally he took some dirt and made it into the shape of a dude and breathed into it, giving life to Adam, the first man. He put Adam in a big garden called Eden to live in, with trees growing all the free food he'd ever need except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden, which was strictly off limits. Adam was lonely, so God had him pick out names for all the animals. Rabbit, nice turkey-fitting snail. Yeah, I can see it. Blue-footed booby. Why is that funny? Because, I don't actually know. None of these animals turn out to be a suitable companion for Adam. So God took one of Adam's ribs and made it into a lady. Whoa, man, good choice. Oh, that's why the word booby is funny. Adam and his wife, who doesn't have a name yet, don't worry about it, hit it off real well, and things were pretty chill in Eden until one day when the woman was visited by a cunning trickster. Hey, nameless woman. What's up? Oh, you set up in. Whoa, nice Jordans. Why, thank you. They're my favorite thing to wear on my feet, which I've always had anyway. It sure sucks how you're not allowed to eat from any of the trees here. Oh, actually, it's only the trees in the middle of the garden we're not allowed to eat from. God said if we touch them, we'll die. That's a load of baloney. He just knows that if you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you'll become smart like him. Well, if that's true, then I guess that fruit does look pretty tasty. So the woman picked fruit from the tree and gave some Adam. Thank you for, and have we both been naked this whole time? And then Adam and his wife heard God approaching, so they hid themselves in the foliage. Hey, Adam, where'd you run off to, man? Hey, God, sorry, I'm a little indecent right now. Who told you were naked? Wait a second, you've been eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, haven't you? Well, maybe if you called it the tree of __. Shame I wouldn't have, but here we are. Besides, it was my wife who gave me the fruit. Hey, it's not like it's my fault. I just got duped by the serpent and his sweet kicks. Did somebody say sweet kicks? Well then, now that justice has been served to the one and only person at fault, we can all forget this little fiasco and move on. Right. But God realized now that Adam and his wife were good and evil pill. They might also eat from the tree of life and become immortal. So he kicked Adam and Eve out of Eden. Well, yeah, her name is Eve now, by the way, and set the cherubim to stand guard along with the spinning flaming sword in case the message wasn't clear enough. Now Adam was forced to toil in the fields all day to produce food, and Eve suffered in giving birth to her children. Their first two sons were Cain, who was a farmer, and Abel, who herded sheep. The brothers gave portions of their yields as sacrifices to God, but only Abel's sacrifice was recognized, leaving Cain a tad miffed. Man, I sure am jealous of my brother. If only there was a way to make him like not be here anymore. Nope, I can't think of anything. Oh, I know, however, this move turned out not actually to improve Cain's popularity, and he was banished with his wife to the land of Nod, where he founded a city called Enoch and began his lineage. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve's next son, Seth, began a lineage of his own, and before he knew it, there were a whole bunch of people civilizationing all over the place, and eventually God decided to check in on them. Hey, humans, it's been a minute. What have you little rascals been up to lately? Oh well, that sucks. And God realized he regretted creating humanity and decided it was time to apocalypse their asses. But then he noticed Noah, a direct descendant of Seth, who was actually a pretty righteous dude. Hey man, so I'm planning on flooding the earth to destroy all life, but you seem pretty cool, so I'm giving you a heads up so you can build an ark for yourself, your family, and every species of land animal to survive inside. Oh, okay, sure, but how many cubits should the ark be in each dimension? Oh, I'm glad you asked. So Noah built the ark according to God's specifications and stuffed himself and his family inside, along with pairs of every kind of terrestrial animal. It then rained for 40 straight days, flooding the surface of the earth and wiping out all life outside the ark. Noah and his several million arkmates toughed it out for a little over a year until the water finally subsided, leaving the boat on the peak of a mountain, and God said, "Hey, thanks for toughing that one out, guys. I pinky promise not to apocalypse the entire earth with a deluge again. The next apocalypse will be something way more badass. I'm thinking plagues, earthquakes, fire, maybe a dragon. Oh, also check out this cool new thing I invented. Whoa, that's pretty. Noah's children then sought to be fruitful and multiply, and human civilization soon became a thing again. A bunch of people started building a big city with a super tall tower, but this endeavor of theirs was a bit too hubristic for God's taste, so he made all the people there speak different languages. Hey, does anyone have a hammer I can borrow? Okay, what? Johnny. Yeah. And unable to understand each other, the people abandoned the city to disperse into their own nations. Generations later, there was a guy named Abram living in Haran when he was 75 years old. God hit him up and told him to abandon his homeland and move down to the land of Canaan to found his own nation. So he did just that. After having settled there for a good decade, God came to Abram again and told him, "Hey man, so about that nation I promised you in exchange for your undying faith, yeah, I was wondering about that because I'm like 85 now and I still haven't had any kids." "Oh, don't even worry, man. Look, see all those stars in the sky? That's how many descendants you'll have." Whoa, there have to be at least 12. However, despite God's promise of a massive lineage, Abram's wife Sarah, I couldn't conceive a child, and she said to him, "Hey, since my uterus is out of commission, why don't you use my slave girl Hagar as a surrogate?" "Oh, okay, sure, as long as that'll be cool with you. You totally don't worry about it." And so with Abram, Hagar conceived a child, but after becoming pregnant, Hagar started giving her mistress some attitude. And Sarah, I realized, wait a second, this isn't cool with me, and she began throwing shade right back until Hagar ran away. But while fleeing, an angel came to her and said, "Hey Hagar, where are you off to?" "Oh, I'm running away from my mistress Sarah, who hates me, because my uterus works better." Wow, she sounds like a real, but I'll tell you what. If you keep putting up with her, God will reward you with a son named Ishmael who will be a wild-ass dude and start a massive lineage for you. Oh, that sounds rad. But could God also just tell Sarai to be nicer to me? All right, I guess I'll just go back. After another several years, God once again visited Abram and said, "Hey, guess what? I know you've been waiting for a while, and you're about to turn 100, but in just a year from now, your wife will give birth to a son, and you two will change your names to Abraham and Sarah, and your descendants will conquer the whole land of Canaan and found a holy kingdom. But first, you need to get circumcised." Whoa, that's awesome. I'm so excited. Wait, what now? Abraham and Sarah, thought it was laughable that they could conceive a child together at their ripe ages. But in the end, God had the last laugh when Sarah gave birth to a son whom she named Isaac. Music. Oh yeah, Isaac means he laughs. It's really clever and funny in Hebrew, probably. And now that Sarah had a child of her own, she finally made her husband kick Hagar and her son Ishmael out of the land of Canaan. Ishmael grew up in the wilderness, becoming a mighty hunter and all-around badass. And eventually his mom set him up with an Egyptian girl. And then, you guessed it, he started a lineage. Meanwhile, Abraham and Sarah finally got to enjoy raising their own flesh and blood son. Boy, I sure do love my son Isaac. I can't think of a single thing in this world that I adore more than my perfect, wonderful, beautiful fruit of my loins. Isaac, if anything happened to this marvelous lad, I would be utterly and irrevocably devastated. So you might take issue with my next request, but hear me out under God's orders. Abraham took Isaac up to a mountain, having him carry kindling on his back. Grandpa, this sure is a lot of wood, but what are we supposed to sacrifice if we didn't bring a sheep or anything? Yeah, don't worry about it. Once at the top, Abraham built an altar and placed his son, tied up on top of the kindling. Okay, I'm starting to piece things together. Meanwhile, I still can't believe Abraham actually thought I was going to make him sacrifice his son. Yeah, I have to hand it to him. He really is a faithful servant. What was his reaction when you told him it was all just a test? I didn't, that was today, and then just as Abraham reluctantly raised his knife to sacrifice his son, it was just a prank. Good job. Abraham, you passed the test, you got a gold star. There's a ram right there. And the bush you can sacrifice instead of God. It's all fine. It's all fine. No, he didn't do it. Yeah, okay, good. That was a close one. Isaac then lived to grow up and marry his once-removed cousin Rebekah, and the two of them conceived twins. Rebekah could feel her sons duking it out in the womb and knew they were destined for a long and bitter rivalry. Their firstborn was Esau. Isaac's favorite was a ruddy hunter a real manly man's man. Meanwhile, Rebekah loved her younger twin son, Jacob, who was more of a soft, sensitive type and spent his days working indoors. One day, Esau came home from a long day of hunting and saw his brother cooking some dinner. "Hey, Jacob, can I have some of that delicious meal you're cooking up? I'm literally starving from all my hard day's work of being a Giga Chad." "Sure, you can have some of my food in exchange for your birthright as our father's firstborn son." Deal." Sometime later, Isaac grew old and blind and could tell he was on his way out. So he summoned Esau and said, "Hey, since you're my favorite son and I'm probably going to die soon, why don't you go hunt some food for me? And then I'll give you a blessing to pass my father's holy covenant on to you." "Sure thing, Dad." But Rebekah overheard this and went to Jacob and told him to quickly bring Isaac food in disguise to steal his father's blessing. "But what if Dad touches me and notices I'm not hairy like Esau?" "Oh, I've got that covered." Hey, Dad, it's me, your alpha son, Esau, with that food you requested." Something's fishy. Your hairy arms feel like Esau's, but your voice sounds like Jacob's." "Well, yeah, we all sound like Jake. It's not like you can afford to hire voice actors for these videos." Touche. "All right, here's your blessing, kiddo." And as soon as Isaac finished blessing Jacob with good fortune and prosperity, his true firstborn, Esau, returned with his own tribute. Cool, thanks, Dad. Gotta go. Bye." "Hey, Dad, here's that food you asked for, but you just fed me, and I gave you my blessing." "Ah, damn. I must have been duped by your brother." "Well, can't you bless me too?" "Well, I can try, but I don't have much mana left. I hoarded all my blue potions for the first blessing, officially fed up with his inheritance being taken from him." Esau swore to kill Jacob after the death of their father. But Rebekah overheard and warned her son, and he fled the land of Canaan. Jacob settled down in Haran, where he married his cousins Leah and Rachel and had a whole bunch of sons with them and their slaves, and eventually they all traveled back to the land of Canaan. On the way there, Jacob had a wrestling match with an angel and won, though dislocating his hip in the process. By the way, don't ask how this started. It's not explained. As a reward, the angel renamed him Israel, meaning he who struggled with divine beings people. Still call him Jacob most of the time, but we're gonna switch to Israel. It's just less confusing that way. Okay. Then Israel reunited with his brother Esau, who it turned out had gotten over his anger issues, and everything was chill between them now. How about that Joseph was Israel's firstborn son by Rachel, his favorite wife, and he was quite the spoiled kid. His dad even got him a sick coat. He started having dreams that one day he'd rule over the rest of his family. He told this to his 10 half-brothers, who surprisingly didn't take the news very well, and they shoved Joseph down a hole. Reuben, the oldest brother, was secretly planning on coming back later to rescue Joseph, but before he could, the others noticed slavers strolling by and sold Joseph off to them. Then they covered his fancy coat in goat's blood and brought it to Israel, claiming to have found it discarded. This is swayed. Meanwhile, Joseph was brought to Egypt and became a house slave of Potiphar, the Pharaoh's high chamberlain. Thanks to God's blessings, Joseph turned out to be pretty great at involuntary labor, but Potiphar's wife had the hots for him, and after having her advances denied, she framed him for assault, and he was thrown into prison regardless. He continued to excel at his work and also started interpreting dreams for his fellow prisoners. "So I had a dream where I was squeezing grapes in my hand. What's that all about?" "That means you're going to be exonerated and set free, or you're just into Ismaro. Cool. Well, in my dream, I had a big hat full of bread. What does that mean? You're going to be executed by decapitation on Friday." All right, next, eventually the Pharaoh caught wind of Joseph's talent and summoned him to interpret his own dreams, one with 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 skinny ones, and another with 7 ears of grain getting eaten by 7 smaller ears. Oh, easy. They're both a prophecy from God. It means the world is going to experience 7 years of surplus harvest, followed by 7 years of famine. Only people who stock up on food while there's still time will survive. Oh gosh, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, I recommend hiring someone to oversee the storage and distribution of the surplus harvest over the next 7 years to ensure that Egypt has enough to feed everyone. It should probably be someone wise, maybe with the blessings of God. Being dashingly handsome would be another plus. You mean yourself, right? Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking about me. I want to do it if that's cool. Joseph was then made the Pharaoh's second in command, and put in charge of preparing Egypt for the famine. Over the next 7 years, he collected a fifth of all the grain produced in Egypt and stored it for future use. When the famine finally came, it ravaged the land of Canaan and left Israel's family dangerously low on food. So he commanded his sons, all but Benjamin, his heir after the loss of Joseph, to travel into Egypt and trade for provisions. Meanwhile, Joseph was making fat stacks, selling all the grain he'd collected back to the Egyptians. When his brothers arrived, he was shocked to see them for the first time in years, but they didn't recognize him, so he decided to test them. Joseph gave them the grain they were asking for, but demanded that should they return for more, they'd need to bring their youngest brother. When they then came back with Benjamin, they were warmly welcomed and invited into his home for a night of partying. The next day, the brothers set out for the land of Canaan with a fresh supply of provisions. But they were soon confronted by Joseph's men, who searched them and found Joseph's silver goblet in Benjamin's bag. For this alleged theft, Benjamin was to be sentenced to slavery, but all of his brothers went to Joseph and pleaded for him to be set free, offering their own enslavement in exchange. Moved by their selflessness, Joseph finally revealed his true identity and forgave them all for their past betrayal. He then had the whole household of his father brought to the land of Goshen in eastern Egypt, where they were to be provided for the remainder of the famine, and it was there that the 12 sons of Israel expanded their lineage, founding the tribes of the Israelite nation, who would carry on God's covenant, and that is more or less the book of Genesis. I haven't read the rest of this yet, but I'm sure whatever happens next in the story of the Israelites, they continued to prosper in Egypt far, far into the future. Oh,